hellery? Well, we are the Ole Miss Rebels who outlasted LSU. And oh, by the way, Paul, find themselves very much alive in a wide open SEC West.
Yeah, I think it was certainly one of the great reversal of fortunes we've ever seen. Because a week ago, that team could not have looked any more ineffective. They did Lane Kiffin dialed up everything correctly. I mean, I have to say this was his signature win at Ole Miss, one of the most significant wins he's had in really in his career, and it just so happened, Matt, to come 10 years to the day that he was fired at USC. I mean, there's some bizarre irony there, but you know, as good as he was, the defenses were equally as bad on both sides. But as great as win as it was, there's Brian Kelly, the pick of many to make it to the Final Four, some to even win the national championship, essentially out of the playoffs by October 1st.
Yeah, and that's to me one of the biggest surprises of this early college football season, that we just turned the page to October and both LSU and Clemson not in the college football playoff mix. But with Ole Miss, look, there are two things about this for me. One, this was an Ole Miss offense that a week ago scored 10 points against Alabama. They scored 10. They had an early success and they couldn't do anything the rest of the game. And somehow they find a way against an LSU defense I think all of us thought was pretty capable. And Lane was like, you know what? Hell with it. If we're going to go toe-to-toe and score, my guys are going to outscore them. And Jackson Dart, phenomenal. Quinshot Judkins finally found his way out of a little, I don't want to call it a slump. He just hadn't really gotten going. 33 carries, 177 yards, and a touchdown. It was electric there in Oxford. And to do that the way that they did it after the week that they just had, to me, Ole Miss is the SEC team of the week. We'll get to Kentucky in a minute because their season was on the line. We've talked about this. Ole Miss can't stub their toe in division anymore, in conference anymore. They did it early, and now you've got to wake up this Sunday morning in Oxford thinking, well, our SEC West is wide open. Why not us?
Yeah, no, and listen, Lane gets a lot of credit, Matt, for being one of the great play callers, and he showed it. I mean, it was a classic case, and I'm happy for him. I really think he is, it's easy to criticize him, and I did, and everyone else did as well, by the way, for losing to Nick Saban and playing games, and maybe he feels like he has to do something more than just go on the football field, but against LSU, he was quiet all week. I think he was motivated by the criticism. And he delivered, and he showed why he has the reputation he does. And Matt, I realize that Ole Miss is an SEC school, but it's not like Alabama and LSU.
Right.
It's not. They're not on the same plane. And he has to use the portal, and he has to use anything he can. And when the stars are aligned, he shows. He showed out as one of the best coaches in the country. And you mentioned Judkins, and he was nowhere to be found against Alabama. He came in large. Some people wondered if he was hurt against Alabama. I don't know, but it didn't matter. He was brilliant, and I'm really glad to see it because they're not done yet for the main reason that they still have to deal with A&M, which we'll get to later, and they have to go to Georgia. But you know what? That doesn't sound nearly as daunting as it may have a couple of weeks ago.
There was a camera shot of Lane last night on the sidelines, and it was just this back and forth game. And you're like, oh, it's just wildly entertaining. And Lane has this look on his face. He's like, is this going to happen to me again?
Yeah.
Like, are we really in this point? And then I started getting big picture with it with Dan Mullen sitting right there. I was like, is Lane sitting there thinking, like, it's just going to be impossible to get done here at Ole Miss, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, no matter what kind of guys I put through on the portal, no matter what kind of offense I put on the field, I'm just not going to be able to get it over on LSU's and Alabama's and A&M's. And that's literally what I looked at him and thought he was thinking. And then his team finds a way to make one stop at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of it, if you're Brian Kelly, look, LSU's as talented as anyone in the country. Jaden Daniels is playing his ass off. Yeah. And now LSU, the one loss out of conference to Florida State. This is their only blemish right now in the West. They had 2 losses last year playing in the SEC championship. It's not all done for LSU, but I had this as shocking.
Yeah. By the way, this was one reason why Kiffin seriously considered going to Auburn, because he knows Auburn is the kind of program you can get much more success with. So, but he stayed, and I'm really happy for him. I think the guy means well in spite of all of the theatrics and the antics. He just tries to find an edge, and he finally found it last night. But Brian Kelly is now going to start talking a lot about winning the West, and by the way, that's all coaches talk about anyway. While the media talks about the playoffs, but you'll hear him say we can do what we did last year, get to Atlanta. But his path is very tricky, and the criticism of him is going to rain down, because with the defensive pieces that he has, it's hard to believe the amount of yards they gave up.
Give me something.